This video is brought to you by my Patreon providers. Thank you all very much for your love and support. Hello and welcome. You are checking out the SIG Romeo MSR red dot as well as the SIG Juliet Micro 3X. Both of these came included in the kit which I've already unboxed, so watch that if you'd like to know more. I open up the Blizzard covers on the MSR red dot to show you that, you know what, they do not really block too much of your view looking through it. For the remainder of this video, I will have them off to not intrude on any sort of optical clarity. As you can see, there are 10 levels of brightness with 2 night vision modes. I don't particularly care how the dial is set up, but you can watch my unboxing for more on that. We flip the magnifier down to see that the image looking through this rather small red dot is still pretty good. Increasing the brightness to maximum here, and you will see that there is a rather alarming starburst effect, particularly at 12 and 6 o'clock. That is just what you can expect from this combination. I want to say it now, but I really feel that the two of these work best independently of one another. The Romeo MSR is a pretty decent, affordable, small red dot, and the Juliet Micro 3X is a pretty decent, affordable magnifier. But together, I don't think they make the best partnership. I will, of course, throughout the rest of this video be showcasing you why I believe that and what they work best with. As far as the dot here in pitch blackness, you could see there are very fine increments as you go down the brightness level. So far, so okay, I guess. Wait a second, it's early September, and yet the trees are bare. Yes, that is because I bought this last winter, and the only reason why it's taken me as long to get to completing it as it has is because I was receiving a lot of patron scopes and viewer scopes, and I wanted to put them at the head of the lines this way I can get them back to them as quickly as possible, which I feel was only right. As far as the image here, well, it's a gloomy ass day. So with that fact, let's see how the magnifier looks by itself. This power transformer is 30 yards away. Those power towers out in the distance are roughly 800 yards. We're going to be focusing on that building, which is about 400-ish yards, and everything in between. By itself right now, the image looks pretty good, and edge-to-edge sharpness seems like it's on par with the best of them. However, these conditions are far and away ideal for proper color representation with any sort of optic, but I have a little bit of segments towards the end which will showcase that in much better light. No pun intended. The brown muddled mess of the dead trees looks very good. You don't see just the large tree limbs, you can see a lot of the smaller branches in between. That tree line is roughly 300 to 400 yards away and is rather impressive. The elevator room there is at 400 yards, and again, like I said, those power towers are roughly 800 yards out in the distance. All of it seems to be fairly well in focus. So, right off the bat, the magnifier seems to be doing its job very well. However, let's throw a red dot in front of it and see if it can still look as good. Naturally, the first red dot we're going to showcase is the MSR which comes in the kit. Two things pop out right away. There's a slight bit of tinting, which isn't so bad, but the overall image quality degrades significantly. Way too much in my opinion. Dot here at maximum illumination is showcasing that weird line from 12 to 6, and you could see around the center and around 6:30, 7 o'clock, there is some ghosting, but that's not from the emitter, that's actually from the anti-reflective in the front. So if you're going to be magnifying this, expect to have those imperfections in the glass no matter what. You can see as we lower the illumination on the dot, it gets a little bit better, but it's never really that impressive. With that, let's throw a different red dot in front and see if it gets any better. The Vortex Strike Fire 2. Well, hold on a second. The image still doesn't look anywhere near as sharp as it did with nothing in front of it. And I always clean my glass beforehand, so I know it's no dirt on the lens causing that. The dot also seems like it has that same imperfection at 12 and 6 o'clock that followed the MSR. So what the hell is going on here? Could it be just the red dot, or could it be a combination of a little bit of the red dot and a little bit of the magnifier? Let's change out the optic one more time for the awesome Holosun 512 gold dot, which again, the image quality doesn't seem that great. And at the higher end of the brightness settings on this, the reticle doesn't look all that fantastic. Granted, I've experienced not the sharpest reticles with other magnifiers and Holosun reflexes. It's just the way it is. But when I remove the magnifier out of the equation, the image through the actual 512 looks sensational. So it's funny to me that the red dot by itself looks pretty good, or the reflex in this case, and the magnifier by itself looks really good. But when combined, it doesn't really leave all that much to be desired. I unfortunately don't have a direct comparison, but this is as close as I can get. This is the HMX3X with the Strike Fire 2 taken several months earlier. Obviously, there's leaves on the trees, and it's a much brighter day. But look at the image quality between these two. Combined, it looks absolutely fantastic. And I don't think I'm really seeing that with this Micro 3X Juliet. It's just not there. It's not capable of it. Now, I know that's not a real apples to apples comparison, but it gives you a really good idea of what I'm talking about. Anyway, let's move right along, shall we? And as you can see, we moved a little bit deeper into winter, seeing as how it snowed 8 to 10 inches the day before I filmed this. We are, of course, at my local small bore range at my home away from home. The red dot by itself in these conditions looks pretty good. When we magnify it, it still looks pretty good, but there is the imperfection again on that center dot, where it is nice and elongated. I don't mean nice in a good way, I just mean it's very prevalent. You could see it very easily, even as we lower the brightness settings to the point where you can't really see it with the naked eye. At least here at 50 yards, the image from the magnifier through the red dot looks very good. The only thing that I can gripe about, if you haven't guessed, is the red dot itself, which is difficult to figure out exactly where center is. If you have an astigmatism like I do, the dot by itself seems okay, but when magnified, it looks a little bit worse than that. As far as parallax through the red dot itself, it's there, but it's really not that bad. And as far as sort of the tinting to the glass, it's barely noticeable. However, if you are a nitpicky person like myself, you will notice it, but at least in this, it is very, very unobtrusive. You really have to look for it to really notice it, especially if you're magnified. So I'm very happy to report that. Now, the image through this red dot is very small. In fact, it's the smallest I've ever gotten my hands on, and that includes stuff like the Trijicon MRO and the 503 Holosun that I reviewed from Alex with the HMX3X. However, when you magnify it, at least you have a really good image looking through it. Magnifier by itself here at 50 yards, again, looks really good. By itself, there's no issues whatsoever, but you throw a red dot in front of it and it just falls on its face a little bit. Everything's relative though, right? And one thing I haven't touched on is the price. But before we talk about the price, let's take a look at the eye box from this Micro Juliet 3X. Moving it side to side with the Romeo MSR in front of it, you can see it's not too bad. I'd say it's about on par with the HMX3X and the Vortex Micro 3X. When we take the MSR off though and we get a little bit more freestyle with it, it's actually fairly forgiving front to back. But unfortunately, when I put it on my rail, it wasn't really lining up as good as I would have liked. It was falling in between pick slots in the spot, a little bit easier for me to look through it. But it is fairly forgiving if you're looking through this thing at obtruse angles. So that's another win for this. Back on the subject of price though, when I bought this mid-2020, it was right around $300, but SIG has lowered the price on this thing substantially. You can find them for sub $250, sometimes as low as like $220, and for that you're getting yourself a decent little red dot and a decent little magnifier. And that's really, really hard to beat. Magnifier by itself here at 50 yards looks fantastic, but let's throw some red dots in front of it.
The Juliet 3 Micro behind the Romeo MSR. This is the Vortex UH1 Gen 1.
You don't have a small brush for the tables, do you?
Gen 2 UH1.
So even with some really good glass in front of it, it still looks pretty much on par with what we've seen with other red dots. But now, enjoy a little bit of ambiance as we do a laundry room clearing.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Maximum brightness. Pew pew, pew pew. Pew pew, pew pew. Pew pew, pew pew. You're gonna come along for the ride. SIG Juliet 3 Micro with the Romeo 5 with the SIG Romeo MSR. You can see it's not really moving where the dot is in relation to the actual scope, which is not how most magnifiers work. You can see it is changing where the exit hole is. So let's see if we could slide the camera over a little bit to see if it looks better. Maybe, not a whole lot. Let's try the elevation. Yep, more of the same. Right now, the dot should be moving, not the perimeter of the glass. So this little video is just to show you that the SIG Juliet 3 Micro is not great. This is the primary arms Gen 4 3X long eye relief version. It's $100 and I absolutely adore this thing. Not only does it have exceptional glass, but if we go ahead and adjust the windage, you can see that the reticle actually moves in relation to where we're looking through with the red dot, not with the red dot, with the magnifier. And you can still look through not only the entire body of the Gen 2 UH1, but you can also look through the entire body of the magnifier without seeing any real issues until you get to the far extremes as far as shadows go. So, night vision 1, night vision 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is its maximum brightness. As you can see, you can clearly spot the emitter on the inside, as well as that massive amount of red tinting to the front. That's at maximum brightness. This is at half brightness. You can still make it out, but nowhere near as bright. So here we are, the SIG Romeo MSR and the Juliet 3 Micro. Together, they work okay. Independently, however, I think they work a little bit better. The MSR magnified, as you saw, is okay. By itself, it's a dandy little red dot, and it works very well. It's bright enough, it has 2 night vision modes, it's got these really nice polar caps which work well. You do have a small view through it, which is a bit of a detriment to me, but if you're shooting this with both eyes open like you should, it's really not that big of an issue. You could also pull these caps off if you so chose. I chose to leave them on because they're really not much in the way, nor are they that big. But one thing I do wish that this kit in particular came with was the low mount. If this will open up, this thing didn't come with it, even though there was a slot for it, and that's the one thing I was kind of disappointed with, because I would mount the low mount on this and put this on a 1022 and have a really fun, affordable plinking gun with a really decent, affordable red dot. The same thing could be said with the magnifier, because this thing is pretty good. Granted, no matter what quality optic you put in front of it, this still doesn't perform as well as some of the alternatives, but there's one thing we have to keep in mind, and that's the overall price. You can buy this combination for around $250 or less, and that's pretty damn impressive in my book. At that point, you can say to yourself, I'm buying a pretty decent magnifier for $125 and a pretty decent red dot for $125. Are there better options? Yeah, but you're going to be paying more money. Weight is always a topic of concern. This combination comes in very lightweight at 15.3 ounces. If you have, well, you're never going to be running just the magnifier, but the magnifier by itself is 10 ounces. And the red dot by itself is only 5.4, and this is with a high mount. I really wish I had a low mount, because again, I'd probably keep this combination, but this doesn't really fit anything I really have in store. The only real comparison that I have, which is not a direct comparison, is the Gen 4 Primary Arms LER with this Vortex Cantilever single mount, which comes in at 11.5 ounces. So a little bit heavier than this Micro 3X, but granted, that's with a non-tilt-away mount. So it could be heavier if you were to get one of those with a different mount. If you're being really budget-minded, this is a pretty good option, as long as it fits your bill with the height requirements that you have and the uses you're going to be using for it. Or what happens if you already have a red dot that you want to put a magnifier on, and you wouldn't mind getting basically a free magnifier if you're only paying $230, $40 for this. Then you could put this on whatever you have available and basically get a free red dot. That's pretty damn impressive. The red dot by itself is pretty nice. I prefer using this without a magnifier. It just looks better to me, and it works just fine. I really like the polar caps. You can remove them. The knob isn't the worst, but I wish I could just turn it 360 degrees as opposed to having the stops. The brightness is adequate, and it does come with night vision mode. So if you are looking for a budget night vision red dot, this might be the one for you. The magnifier by itself is good, but as you've seen, paired with even really high-end glass in front of it, it still doesn't perform as good as some of the alternatives. But again, for the price, $125 for both of these, maybe less. You could probably find these for like $110 individually, obviously buying it as a kit. And for that, this is really, really compelling. And that's all I can really say about this. It's a compelling kit, and for the price, I think it performs admirably. Yes, you could spend more and get more quality, but if you're looking for ultra budget, or if this is your first endeavor into any sort of red dot / magnifier combo, and you plan on just seeing if the system works for you, this is a very inexpensive way of getting into that. And with that, thank you very much for watching. And again, a huge thank you to all my Patreon providers for making this video possible. See you again next time.
And a very huge thank you to all of my Patreon providers. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. If you'd like to help support the channel but don't want to join my Patreon, I completely understand. But you can still help support by using my affiliate links in the description below. Thanks again for watching.